Alright, all you graveyard shift racers out there tonight, welcome back to Under the Radar. And this week's Stunts of the Week comes from none other than Rayman 3000 with his stunt Pt.4, and also comes from none other than Buster Free 13 BFK with their stunt Pilentio con el BRG. And I do believe that translates into piloting with the BRG. And the reason why we picked these two stunts, well, for the first one, anybody crazy enough to do the stunt in the Cyclone shirtless doing a 360 landing on their wheels definitely deserves an honorable mention. And on top of that, anybody who can pull off a nollie in the LS River so fast that they can do a 720 spin off a rooftop is another reason why in the world he got in for this week. And on top of that, for the second stunt, anybody who can thread the needle like that in rush hour traffic with a jet on a highway road underneath the sign definitely deserves some props on this show too. And speaking of people who deserve some props, I think it's time for us to get ready to rev our engines and see who was the best of the best for this summer of RPG for this year, as we go into a very special month-ending edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Month. And the first track that we have up comes from the creator Genopa with their said track G Turbulence Oval. And the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track for this month, not only because of the cool selection of cars that you get a chance to race with, but the fact that it even adds in a little hump on this racetrack to make doing a little bit of slipstreaming during this track not only exciting but dangerous at the same time for how fast you're going behind your opponent. And the only tip of advice, speaking of slipstreaming, is make sure you be careful when you slipstream behind your opponent, especially in supercars, because if you end up flying into the air and launch into the skies, let's just say if your opponent's faster than you on the ground while you're flying into the air, you're gonna most likely land on them and it will cost you during this race. So be careful slipstreaming, just a little bit of a warning, especially against those giant oversized humps. And the next track to make it in for this elite list for this month comes from the creator once again Genopa with his said track G Alpine Roval. And the reason why in the world this track made it in for this week, not only because he was able to make a cool racetrack on the mountains of Mount Chiliad, but also decided to turn this into a drift race like no other. And the only tip of advice we have for you race fans out there for this said track is to be careful when you make your way on the upper part of this track that has little to no barriers protecting you from falling off the side of the track. And as another added warning, if you have one of those friends who like to try to imitate Speed Racer and knock you off the side of that, make sure you have a car that has good handling and enough weight on it to prevent that from happening. Because if you don't, it's a long way down and it will cost you during this very race. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator Elite Goose Sintra BR with their said track, The Vinewood Circuit. And before we go into what we liked about this said track and why was it picked for this month, this would be the first, and I'll say it again, the first open wheel track to make it in for the top 5 tracks of the month in the history of Under the Radar, so congratulations to this guy. And on top of that, the reason why we decided to pick it, because it reminds us of those old school days we used to play on the N64 with those indie stock car racing tracks, and this reminds me of that said track. Not to mention the fact that it comes with enough straightaways so you can really open up your open wheel car, but also comes with a very cool pit lane in there as well. And the only tip of advice that we have for you fans out there is to make sure you use your curse boost wisely during the said track, because there are a couple of hairpin turns in this track that will cost you if you use your curse boost unwisely during the said track. And also, make sure you test this track out with medium tires at first before you go on to hard or soft tires to truly get a grip on this said track. And the next track that we have up comes from the creator Cobalt TBD with their said track, Down the Drain GP. Now, the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track for this month, not only because of the fact that he decided to do a remix of the classic Down the Drain race, but he also decided to turn it into a Grand Prix race with open wheel cars. Now, the only tip of advice we have for you fans out there, especially for you slipstreamers out there, make sure you be careful on that embanked turn that you have to make before you go into that reservoir in the Los Santos River, because if you're not paying attention with no barriers over there, you will fly straight up and right into the river, turning your car into a flotation device and costing you this race at the same time. So be careful, folks, and make sure you have your eyes open to make that left-hand turn to try to win this race. And the last but not least track to make it in for this month comes from the creator Cosmo, nice name by the way again, with their said track, hashtag F1 Diamond Grand Prix. Now, the reason why in the world we decided to pick this track for this month, not only because it comes with the curse boost and the ability for you to change the tires for this said track for your Indy stock cars, but also because it's another one of those tracks that thinks outside the box with a lot of highs and lows included in this said track. And as a little bit of a warning for you fans out there, right near checkpoint number 16, I would be careful for that hairpin turn if you decide to use your curse boost before the finish line for it, because it will cost you during this race and it's very hard to recover from if you hit into the side of that wall. So yeah, be careful when using your curse boost on that said checkpoint, or else it will cost you that pole position checker flag that you so desire for that said race. And with that said, folks, wraps it up for another monthly edition of the GTA Online Top 5 Tracks of the Month. And I guess with that said, we might as well head back into that music one more time. And when we return, we'll be back with the final segment for Under the Radar for this week, right after this. So don't get lost in madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned.